This is the past. This is what was before the Minneapolis Native American urban settlement.
In Minneapolis here, there's only certain areas you could go in the cities and be accepted. You never applied for a job and tell them you're Indian. You told them you're Indian, it said right on sometimes if you're Indian, don't even apply. If you told them you're Indian, you forget about it. So people had to go and say they're French, Italian, Hispanic, or some other nationality to get a job. And that was the conditions that existed.
I was probably the first Indian that lived in South Minneapolis. I lived at 14th Avenue South, 2010 for a number of years, and there was no Indian people in South Minneapolis. It was a Caucasian community. And there was a lot of Indian women that used to sew and used to gather, and they planned a lot of activities. A lot of Indian agents here in Minnesota got started because of these active Indian women. At that time there was a lot of racism too, and it's still here. The racism is still here, but at that time there was no civil rights laws, or no laws were passed. Indians couldn't buy alcohol in bars at the time. There was a law against Indians, and they should have kept it, I think. But anyway, they couldn't buy it. So in 1953, they passed a law where Indians could buy alcohol.
We got pictures of people that are handcuffed around light poles because the police didn't have enough room in their paddy wagons and their cars to haul them downtown. They'd handcuff them around a light pole, and they'd be sitting there in the rain and the snow, maybe for an hour or two, waiting for them to come back and pick them up. And if they resisted in any way, they were beaten up. We have pictures. We're going to put them on display this fall. We got pictures of people's eyes are split wide open, arms are broken, people that were shot in the back by policemen. We got testimony from young Indian women that were picked up on Franklin Avenue, taken down by the river and raped. Those were the things that were happening when the movement formed.
But as far as Upper Midwest goes, Upper Midwest was started like in 1937, and they did grassroots fundraising. They used to have bake sales, softball programs, and that's rummage sales. So they did a lot of grassroots they'd have dances, fundraising.
And everything I did, whether it was around housing or transportation or community empowerment, definitely had a lens of social justice, economic justice, environmental justice. And I come from a number of disenfranchised communities, whether that's the Native community or being part of the Greater Phillips community or being part of the LGBT community, but people who were traditionally disenfranchised. And I thought it was important for people like me to be part of government and to help empower other people. And so
This is the Little Earth United Tribes Housing Projects. This organization started after the Relocation Act and is the only Native American preference housing unit in the country.
Little Earth is here in large part because of the Relocation Era and Relocation Act, where Indian people were enticed off their reservations with the promise of jobs and schooling and housing, etc. in urban centers. What we had to do was had to bring the community to a place where our people were invested. Right? This is our community. This is the only Indian preference housing community in the nation, and it's something that we should cherish, not destroy. So bringing, I think, the people's hearts and minds to a place where they actually viewed Little Earth as such an amazing thing, in that sense of ownership and sense of pride within the community.
This is Center School. It started in the early 1970s as a drop-in center, and now is an alternative school to help out Native American students get their diploma.
Center School began as a drop-in center on Franklin Avenue. It was a drop-in center sponsored by Episcopal Neighborhood Services. And so many kids came to the drop-in center as opposed to going to regular school that after a while, the people who are running it said, you know what, these kids this is the only place they're going at all. They're not going to the regular schools because whatever they're not getting something that they need in those schools. And so they decided to try and form an alternative school, one where they would teach indigenously to the kids and relate to the kids that way. And it worked, you know, it became successful. We had kids that wanted that kind of education, didn't want to be talked down to. And I think they were interested in being in an environment where there were other Native people so that someone would hear them.
So I think really what compelled me to do this work is it's what I'm supposed to do. You know, as an Indian man, it's my responsibility. And if we don't do this, if we're not willing to put community first, right, who's going to? Right? Ain't no one else going to be able to actually help change things but ourselves. Only we could do that. So I think it's just my responsibility. I have to do this.
I think building our future, it's making sure that we are taking stock of the assets within our community. First off, I think that's the people and the talent and the intelligence and the drive and the perseverance of Native people.
I think that to be strong in your culture, because if you don't value your own culture or who you are, then no one else is going to value it.
I recommend that we build it on each other and our culture, our language and culture, our commonality as Indigenous peoples. I think that's the way this community began, and that's what probably will keep it going.
I think we build our community and our future around self-determination, with an understanding that we have to create our own future. It takes a great vision, right? We have to have that vision, and we have to have the courage to walk that road towards that vision. Ain't no one gonna walk it for us. The days of the outside world dictating to us what to do or who to be, those days are over. That hasn't worked. And you look around any Indian community and you'll see clearly that that hasn't worked. We have to do this ourselves. So my advice is, we need to be strong as a people. And the only way we get strong is we stop giving power to the historical trauma.
If the Native Americans never came back to Minneapolis, do you think they would be what they are today? Do you think there would be Native American rights? How would the community look like? Dedicated to all the strong Native American women and men. This is our future.